Hello everybody and welcome to this live audience webinar of the Integrated Home. My name is Jeff Hayward and today we're talking about Rocher, a spectacular project in Monaco, winner of the CEDIA Global Integrated Home Award in 2019. What was the brief? What were the technologies and the integration challenges? And how did these get resolved? I am delighted that for this webinar we have joining us Michael Robinson, Project Director at CEDIA Member of Excellence, Perfect Integration. And with him we have Phillip Pini, Head of UK Residential Sales at TIG, the exclusive EMEA sales agency for Crestron. Welcome to you both.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
So, Michael, can you first of all, before we go into the project, just share a little bit about you and Perfect Integration?
Cool. So Perfect Integration is in the 10th, almost 11th year now. We've been a residential integrator for 10 or 11 years, mainly in the UK market, but with a few projects abroad here and there. This one's definitely one of our benchmark pieces, though. Where in 2019, we were lucky enough to be one of the first 10 CEDIA Members of Excellence. Through our work with CEDIA on the outreach councils and writing CPDs and doing exemplary work like this. So that's a little bit about me.
And Phil, what about you? Everybody knows Phillip Pini, right?
Maybe, maybe not. Thanks, Jeff. That's a big introduction. For those of you that don't, I work for TIG exclusively on the Crestron product group, heading up the residential sales team here in the UK. And I've been with them now for just over 10 years, so pretty much the same time as PI.
Very good, excellent. So remember, if you've got any questions, then please do use the chat facility in Zoom, and we'll do our best to cover off as many of those as we can at the end of the webinar. Michael, Rocher, great pronunciation, I know you'll agree. How did this project come about?
It's a good question, that one, Jeff. There we go. So the project came about, we recently finished an award-winning project in London, a multi-dwelling, and the client bought one of the apartments. It was a bit of a kind of, as much as you ever get in this industry, a bit of a fairy tale beginning. The estate agent called us up and said the client wants to make some changes. Can you come down and have a chat with him? And at the end of the day, after speaking with him, introducing him to the way the system works and getting him set up with the app so he could make adjustments, he said he loved the system and he wanted us to come down and have a look at his place and if we worked overseas. Obviously, we've worked overseas, so we were very excited to get involved in another offshore project. And he actually gave us these floor plans that you can see on the left and said, "This is what we're looking at. This is the place I'm doing down in Monaco. Can you when can you come down?" So a few weeks later, I was flying down to meet him.
Small project then.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, the client brief kind of was to come in and have a look at this. We got sent those floor plans and we only got sent one level of the house. So when we flew down to see him, went in to sit with the architects and go through everything, I'm sitting there with my one sheet of paper ready to go, and there's all this other information out on the tables. I had no idea what was going on, and so I looked at the drawings, and it all had the same project reference on there. And I sort of said to the architect, feeling kind of stupid, what project are we looking at here? And it was the same project. I just had only been sent a third of the information. So it ended up being, a big 3-story house with a huge basement and gardens and pool house, and it ended up being something very different. So yeah, that was an interesting start, definitely.
You see a lot of these projects, Phil. Do they normally start off as something quite small in the client's mind, but actually is quite huge from an integration perspective?
It can go one or two ways. When we had the showroom in London, we used to get people walk in and just say, I want some control, or I don't understand what it does, but I'd like to learn more. and then they can become ginormous, you know, where they've got these very intricate security systems, irrigation systems, all these kind of things tied in together. And it's kind of almost that tick list of, oh, I didn't know it could do that, or I didn't know it could do that, or I didn't know it could do that. So we're just the very beginning, though. We tell the beginning of the story, and then, you know, obviously our integration partners obviously deliver it, but they finish off where we start.
So you talk about this client giving you a brief. He was a lover of technology and wanted to fill the home with tech. Was it pretty much a blank canvas then of what you could do, Michael?
Yeah, look, the number one thing he said is that he'd had integration before. He'd had boats and houses and everything between with control systems, not necessarily Crestron, but with other control systems in there. And he'd never been very excited by how they ended up working for him. Found that a lot of them were a control system, and you fitted the mold of it. The control system didn't work to accommodate how he lived and what he wanted out of it. So when he went into this project and it was nearly everything he wanted, and then decided that he wanted a few changes and we could easily accommodate them, he realized, I think, that Crestron, using that as a basis for the infrastructure to be controlled was ideal and was probably the best way to start. So it was a bit of a blank canvas, but he already had a bit of a preconceived notion that was the direction he wanted to go. Also, the apartment that we had finished had DM video distribution and had Sonex audio in it. It had a lot of Crestron within it, the remote controls, the PIRs, everything like that. The whole system revolved around Crestron infrastructure. And so when he experienced it like that, he said, I want my new house to be like this place. Obviously bigger and different, but it basically the same thing. So yeah, that was important. And also because it was a project outside the M25 essentially. It needed to be resilient, redundancy was important, being stable, being able to be remotely supported, updated, upgraded, changes made. Everything like that needed to be able to be encompassed within what our specification was. And so part of the client brief was, you need to be able to support this from London. You need to be able to service it and come out once a year and, you know, wipe down the touch panels and update firmware, and then that's it. But it was really important that it covered those bases, that it was, you know, powerful, flexible, functional, and stable.
So, do you want to just talk to us a little bit about the design that you came up with? Yeah,
I mean, it's a big question. We designed everything. We designed from the technical room where the AV racks were to the way the speakers fitted into the balustrade. It's an old monument, like a grade 2 listed building or grade 2 star or whatever. And so the fabric of the building had to be largely uninterrupted. So other than the massive hole that they dug underneath it, obviously. So we ended up having to fit a lot of things in without adding speakers on the surface of anything, and try and really, I guess, adapt the project to what the client wanted it to look like, what it needed to look like. And you see some of the photos here of the sort of the grandeur of the property and the style that it is. Everything had to be considered. So we applied a lot of our sort of experience in doing odd, strange installations and custom solutions, and really applied them. We're involved in doing the network security and perimeter security and the operational protocols with this local actual boots on the ground security company. We did the cinema design, the aesthetics, the interiors, the fabric choices, the paint colors, everything we were involved with there. We did the original renderings and elevation drawings, creating the curve of the ceiling. The way that the climate control infrastructure came together. There was a plumber that knew he had to run pipes and underfloor heating, but how it was going to work, he was just going to put thermostats in every room. The client was not going to be happy with that, so we developed the control system that sat over the top of that, in conjunction with the plumber, which was difficult because he didn't speak a lot of English. We worked with the lighting designers and the architects to figure out where speakers would be placed. they had originally just visible speakers throughout the whole property. But as you can see from the ornate ceilings, that was never going to work. They had to be hidden away as much as possible, like the balustrade discreetly mounted in areas. Like in the cinema, they're behind fabric. In the some of the bedrooms, they're in pop-up lifts. In every room, there's a different nearly every room there's a different set of speakers, and in every room it's installed in a different kind of way. So there was a lot, and a lot of local trades didn't appreciate the sort of quality that we wanted to achieve with that. They struggled to conceive, and they were sort of heavily driven by the architects, but we like to feel like they felt a bit of peer pressure from us as well, and hopefully some of them upped their game a little bit.
So great for you to be involved early on the project and to have that personal relationship with the client. Yeah,
I mean, that was key. I think that from the outset, the client, because we try and be as honest as we can with every client. Sometimes they've got terrible ideas, and we try and tell them that if they have got a terrible idea. There was originally 6 different contractors trying to achieve what we did. And it would have been impossible to achieve anything like what he got with that configuration of the organisation, the project structure. So I think that you're right, Jeff. The trust with the client was important, and I think he was particularly receptive. Some clients aren't, but particularly receptive to being led in the right way to make the right decisions. And some of it did cost more to do it right, but he doesn't have regrets on spending the extra money. So much so that before this house even finished, we picked up a 3rd project with him, which also finished before this project. Wow. So, yeah.
And how early were Crestron involved? If you knew it was going to be built around a Crestron infrastructure, that was going to be quite important, obviously.
Yeah. Well, the project was big. We delivered. I'll start with what we did. We had about 30 zones of audio. That includes the ability to connect DJs into the system and pump the music from the house into a PA system if needed. There's 11 zones of audio and different sources associated with that. There's between keypads, lights, PIRs, keypads, touch panels, televisions that have got touchscreen interfaces, remote controls, iPads, and everything like that. There's over 100 different devices throughout the house. There's about 32 zones in the house, and that is just something that's defined as a zone within the Crestron system that controls anything or everything, whether it be just simply lighting in a room or lighting, climate, shutters, blinds, curtains, anything like that within a room. So there's 32 different rooms, hundreds of devices. I think there's 300 network or 310 network connected devices and 400 and something other dimmers and light switches and audio repeaters and things throughout the house. I mean, it's an immense system. Along with that, there's different disparate systems. There's security systems, CCTV, the networking, which we have control over in a way I'll explain a bit later, door entry, access control, climate. There's so many different moving components that getting a system to be able to pull all of those ingredients together and actually work it's not a simple thing. And I think that's testament to winning the Best Integrated Home Awards, is that if you do a lot of things and you pull a lot of stuff together, then it's people recognize that as a challenge and that you've hopefully succeeded. I feel like we did. So other than that, obviously there's the cinema that we did, which was special in its own right. So yeah.
And Phil, when did you become aware of this project internally at TIG Crestron?
So we worked with PI on the multi-dwelling, as Mike said, and they contacted us probably within the first couple of months of engaging with the client to do this. They gave it a code name, so they called it the Rock at that particular time. Integrators like doing that. Some give them incredibly weird and wonderful names, but this was called the Rock. So nice project. Obviously, they spoke about the destination. volunteered my services to go with Mike to site visits. But
it was very helpful, Phil. Thank you.
He never took me with him. No, in fact, actually, I think on some of the times that we were down in Monaco for the yacht show, these guys were there doing the installation one year. So that was good. But yeah, quite early on, it's quite nice. We don't need to be told from the very, very beginning, obviously, but they like to kind of queue up the projects that they're working on and tell us how exciting they are and what they're going to do.
Was that the year we went to Buddha Bar, Phil?
Yeah. Enough.
I was told not to speak about that.
Yeah, definitely.
We better not on a webinar. So talk to us about the challenges that you faced then, Mike.
Brad, the first challenge was obviously geography. It was in a different country. So it needed to be reliable. We needed to have we needed to know what we were putting in there was going to work. The next part was that it needed to look good. The client, as you've seen, the house is beautiful. It's one of the most stunning places I've ever seen and been to, and everything about this house just speaks to the theme of it. So to put strange looking devices on the walls and to not consider everything throughout, the design aesthetic would have been poor and ill considered on our behalf. So we needed to have products that suited the installation. The performance of the system, this guy's had a lot of tech, he's had a lot of systems, he's had a lot of things that haven't impressed him, and I knew that this is the kind of guy who buys nice cars, has nice houses, has yachts. You make yourself recognized and memorable by giving someone like this a great impression, and trying to cut budget to put in poor quality products is not going to work. You're not going to win his appreciation or have yourself as a memorable figure if he every time turns something on and it's rubbish. So it needed to have huge performance. The sound system, as I mentioned, we can pump a DJ into there, so when his kids are down at the house with him, he can have a DJ over. They can pump into the garden system, which is 20 speakers, a DJ, and they can have a pool club party, which is that'd be a dream. The video distribution system is all DM. It was pre-NVX, so it's the regular DM, the 8G plus 8. Is that right?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that one, so that's a 16 by 16 frame. The ability to dial in, support that. We've got 5 different types of endpoints for different scalers for just different TVs, the touch panel interfaces on other TVs, and different things for the projector and for the TVs. We've got input sources from certain rooms where we need to get the source onto the system, and then different types of cards to achieve different features within the property. You can't do that with other products, other brands. They just don't have that flexibility. Also, the support that we get. I mean, Crestron never give you a discount, but they do love to tell you they've got great support. No, that's unfair. Crestron guys are great. They've got fantastic support. The products come from the factory. From the warehouses. They come mostly pre-configured for the layout that they put in there, and the ability to call them up, have them dial in, have them troubleshoot with you. Again, not a lot of manufacturers offer that kind of in-depth support, and being 24/7, much like we offer our clients, you need a company that helps support you 24/7, because we don't, as good as we can be, we don't know everything, and there are things that Crestron needs to help with. There's glitches in things. There's firmware, the versions that we need to know that there's maybe some correlation that doesn't work. There's a lot of items that a lot of moving parts. 700 devices that are connected. Sometimes things don't talk to each other, and sometimes you need help. So having that support from the manufacturer is imperative.
Anything you'd like to add to that, Phil?
Mike raised valid points, and we've worked incredibly hard, especially head office and the way that we stock things in the bonded warehouse in Belgium. We try and get things out as fast as possibly can if we do have an on-site failure, versus people, companies like this will carry spare parts of things like an RMC for a backup of a DM system, or MVX boxes if that was the particular case, things like remote controls, but we don't expect everybody to have their own independent, large warehouse where they hold stock at the same time. But yeah, as Mike said, it's just who they can call on, and my title might be sales, but I'm technical enough, and as is Greg, who looks after perfect integration directly for us. So they'll call on us first, but obviously then they'll go down the correct routes in terms of raising an RMA or speaking to the technical support team if they've got something that is outside of our jurisdiction.
Good stuff. So let's talk a bit more in detail then, Michael, about the integration side of things.
Yeah. So, I think that this is the sort of leading into that for us, the client really wanted to be able to ensure that he had the system that he wanted and that it would do what he wanted it to do. So customization was very important. And from there, we knew that having Crestron as our key product within the project, we could achieve that. Crestron was customizable. We created our own user interface. We've been developing it before the beginning of this project, but this is the first project that it went live on. And I guess having the ability to incorporate a custom user interface across a project as big as this, it needed multiple processors. It's got 6 different programs running with hundreds of thousands of signals running in there, and that's whether it be TVs communicating with each other or the network connected devices, RS-232 connected devices, and then other Crestron bus connected devices. There's hundreds of thousands of signals moving around this system constantly. So having the system designed using Crestron, we knew we could achieve this. We could give the customer what he wanted. The system in itself is the Crestron isn't all the components. It's not. It's the core of it. It's the glue that holds everything together. But obviously, there's other bits in there like televisions and speakers and other bits that are the sort of more tangible components of the system. But the client uses the Crestron system to get the best out of all of that. And a big part of what we wanted to be able to enable the customer is, and again, I'll touch on that in a second, is a lot of control systems, when you use them and you program them, especially the more out-of-the-box ones, they don't let you do everything that you could do if you had all of the individual components separately connected. A lot of them, you press one button and you get a result. And then if you want to do something different, like listen to audio whilst you've got the football on in the background, you can't really do it, because watching and listening, unless you have a convoluted process of choosing different sources and then having different speakers and different zones, doesn't really work that well. So the Crestron system was, as I say, part and parcel of what made us able to do this within the project. The photo you see here, as well as the touch panel interface in the kitchen, is a TV with digital graphic engine attached to it. That enables the on-site caretaker to monitor the whole property and interface and engage with the property. It shows security layouts and motion sensing, CCTV, everything. Different menus pop up, different alerts and warnings pop up. And the screen is a fully functioning touch panel as well. So he's got a 27-inch touch panel in his kitchen or a television. It's it works both ways. So that's the sort of things that led us to, recognize Crestron was the right product and design the system. Yeah, I think we've designed the system not as far as Crestron can possibly go, but we've taken it a long way, I think.
No, it looks really good. And you talked about the control system and the interface. Now, can you describe the system in detail?
Yep.
Wow.
So there's another question. That's one drawing of one rack. There was 3 racks and 2 patch panels. So yeah, there's a lot involved. This is a little video we did. This is early on in the sort of beta testing of the user interface to the client. We wanted to be able to enable the client to quickly adjust any setting. That's the 5 menus on the left you can see. That represents and flows through every room in the house. With the touch, we wanted them to be able to recall basic scenes, basic lighting things, services, adjust temperatures, and then there's a further in-depth menu process. This enables the client to get so much more out of the system so simply and so quickly. You'll see in the top there's a multitask function. As soon as you turn an audio source on in a room, you can select the multitask, and then it allows you to select any audio source you want and play it over the top of the video. So again, enabled by the fact that we've got the Crestron DM and the Sonex there, we know when sources are on, what sources are on, what's connected to where, what the volume is of those areas, and then we can change the audio track over the top of it to give the client something else that he wants. And that's always been a pet peeve of mine. I've sometimes liked the sport on and different music coming out, but if you've got a control system, you've got to manually do it. It's always a bit of a clumsy process. So having that feature in there is really useful. Please excuse also the color of the background. That was, as I say, that's a beta one. It is color changeable. But
this is something you mocked up to show the client. This is the sort of thing we're thinking about.
Yeah, this is something that we were thinking about, and it actually, this is, I think this was the second revision we did. The first revision didn't have as much description in regards to the titles of the blocks on the left, the sort of the quick menu structure, and we've now updated that, and that's sort of where I saw that, probably call that generation 1.5. It's now generation 2 for that system. It's quite similar, but we're developing it. We've developed it further, and at the moment, generation 3 is in development at the moment, where we're converting a very similar layout, but slightly refined into HTML5 going forward. That's the future of that. The speed with which it operates, using Java and cascading style sheets, it makes that by far the best interface, but by far the best infrastructure. And if you've got a good interface, then it makes it a good interface on top of it as well. So yeah.
What would you say, Phil? I mean, do a lot of your integrators do that sort of thing, or is that fairly untypical?
Yeah, integrators do, I think, because they like to put their own stamp on it. So this is a Crestron hardware system, but it's been designed and delivered by PI. So that's what I mean. The fulfillment side of things is your personal stamp on something. So it's not uncommon now for some of our long-standing integration partners to have designed all of their own UIs in-house. So not saying that they don't use independent programmers. They may for some resource, but a lot of them want to control the look and feel to their clients and have a consistent approach. So in this particular instance, where it stemmed out of an MDU, this would have taken that UI on a lot further than what they had originally, but it would mean that the next project that PI deliver will be based around the same. So you don't have to keep explaining it or you're rewriting it all the time. Obviously, as Mike said, as they go through versions, there'll be updates to it, but it's all to do with simplicity, which is what we've done with Crestron Home. A lot of people are in two minds about that, but again, this particular project, could it have been Crestron Home? Probably right back at the very beginning, before Mike started talking about complexities and car lifts and irrigation systems. Yeah. But the second that those things are started to add on and you go outside of that ecosystem, then no, that piece of hardware needs to come out and a standard Crestron processor needs to go in. So Custom is still very much alive. We do a lot of custom projects. A vast majority of the projects that we do are custom. They tend to be bigger. And like this, there's a lot of complexity in there. There's a lot of devices, but actually the client sees something that's very, very simple. A simple user interface on the wall with a really nice, simple UI that you don't have to explain to anybody.
That was actually the reason behind this. So through the menu structure with the UI, the client has an elderly mother, and she doesn't use any of this technology. She doesn't watch TV. She reads a book when she goes to bed. So, so he wanted to have a couple of options for her. He said, I just want to be able her to have lights on, lights off, basic functionality on the touch panel, not worry about anything else. So we just developed a way to change the dynamic sidebar on the side. Functionality is all still there. It's all user adjustable. You just need to go through the menu at the top. But she can use any of the lighting functions, and that's it. This becomes the slider pane. You can then change it to lights and blinds for if the rooms have blinds on it, so she can sit in her room, adjust her curtains up and down in the morning, and still choose from the circuits of lighting. Or if it's summer, she may want to use the climate. Again, this is an offline version, so it doesn't have any numbers or any information on it. But the layout is consistent, simple, and easy to use for anyone. And that was a big thing for the client. He said that he's had systems, they've been complicated, or they've had systems and they haven't done what he wants. So we had to sit right in the middle on that precipice, that little fine edge, and actually do the balancing act. So, yeah.
And can you talk to us about some of the other neat control things that you did in this house?
Yeah. Well, one of the coolest things I think was in the garden, there's an irrigation system, as everyone has in their big gardens. And if you have the audio system on in the pool in the garden area, it doesn't turn on any of the lawn sprinklers and the areas where the ground will end up wet and people will get annoyed with the fact that there's sprinklers going off. So for the house, for that little bit of integration, the time clock, all that sort of thing for irrigation is not necessary, but it just stops the irrigation from coming on whilst the music's on in the garden. Which, I mean, we don't know. I don't know how often it's used. We have logs of when things get used for monitoring and support purposes. But I imagine that every afternoon, when the sun goes down, if the music's still on, that it delays the water coming on till after the music's gone off. So it's a handy little feature to have. It autonomously does that. The client doesn't need to have an active, I'm going to have a party, I'm going to turn the watering system off. So it's just a clever little bit of integration. Again, the client thought it was pointless until we explained why it might be useful. In the cinema, we popped an iPad in a dock with the user interface on it, because the client wanted to be able to use download content to his Kaleidoscope and other platforms, and he needed to have an iPad to do that. So, but because he would have lost the touch panel functionality, we put a sleeve on it, and that replicates what a touch panel does. It's got the lights, volume up, volume down, power on and off symbols on it, or power off symbol, not power on. But it's got a play pause instead of the home button because it doesn't link to the touch panel. So yeah, and that was kind of a nice little feature. And then in the garage, because he's conscious of his security and we've invested a lot of time and effort into coordinating the security, we've again put another touchscreen interface. This one's a 24-inch one, I think, with another digital graphics engine. And that one can control his alarm, the shutters in the building, the security cameras. He can monitor perimeter security, and everything like that. So if he feels like there's a risk, and his security or his caretaker aren't with him, if he's going for a jaunt in his Ferrari, he may want to check that. And we've positioned it so it suits a Ferrari and a Range Rover. It's right between the two. Very considerate integrators for all of the diversity of cars people have these days.
No, I can see. One of the other things that I think with this house, if he's got lots of guests, and lighting is often a barrier for clients in how to control that, particularly if they're getting up at night. Did you do anything around that sort of
Yes.
aspect?
Yeah, we did. And that's a good point. So we've within the house, there's 30 something Crestron PIRs, and the master suite's the best example of that. There's a PIR inside the master suite which works from I think 9 a.m. through till 10 p.m. It works, unless the good night function's been pressed. And these are all sort of, again, back-end logics that the guys have written into the system, which they're not easy to write in, but using the structure that we get with Crestron, it's a relatively, well, I don't have to write it, so it doesn't matter to me, but it's a relatively straightforward process. So when the client gets up in the middle of the night, the PIR in the bedroom doesn't turn on. And then as he moves through to the lobby, the dressing room, the WC, or the bathroom, there's PIRs in each of those rooms. When he moves through the lobby into either the dressing room, the bathroom, or the WC, whilst he's in one of those three rooms, the lighting logic keeps the lobby light on. It's at a low level. There's obviously different scenes for different times of the day. Then when he moves out of the bathroom and back through the lobby tells the bathroom to turn off. And then once the bathroom is turned off and he's gone past the bedroom PIR, the lobby then turns off. So it's a part of Crestron have a sort of I don't know what you call it. There's some sort of the presence detection, and there's like little, it traces the path of where people move. And as long as you configure it correctly, it has the logic within it that allows you to say, this person's gone through here and now they've left that way. And we've used that on quite a few projects since we sort of spent the time developing it on this one into what we wanted it to do. And the same thing happens with the music. If he's listening to music in his bedroom and he goes into the dressing room or the bathroom where there's speakers as well, the music will follow him into those rooms and stay on whilst he's in those rooms. And when he leaves those rooms, it'll go off. And again, using the Crestron system that we've got, so the Sonex hardware that we've got, we can ramp up that volume gradually and then ramp that volume down gradually. It's all very user intuitive. That knows what the volume of the other zone is, so it brings up the volume of this zone to be the same volume. So he doesn't have to have the TV up super loud in the bedroom to hear what's going on in the bathroom. He can just walk into his bathroom and Sky News is playing, the audio from Sky News is playing in his bathroom. And they're just sort of, again, simple automated processes. Well, they seem simple, they're not, but they're simple automated processes that make this guy's life better because he doesn't have to deal with, the stress of putting on the music in the bathroom in the morning.
It's those small details that make a difference, hey, Phil?
Absolutely. I think, yeah, when it comes to things like that, they do sound trivial, but that's what we do as an industry. The whole point is that this is all supposed to simplify complexity. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background, and I'm pretty sure the client kind of knows what he has and what he's purchased, but probably has not seen every single component that's gone into that building. Nor does he probably want to. He wants to see the result of it. So it's very pretty. The wiring is all harnessed as you would expect to see, but he hopefully never has to see that. He never has to interact with it because it's all hidden away doing its job. And the output is the UI that he touches and feels to control a cinema or a garage door or an irrigation system.
The nice thing was actually that this client does engage and he is appreciative of that, and showing him this is just as we'd finished first fixing the first two racks, the cinema rack didn't go in there yet. He was like, your work is so neat, and he said that when some of the other contractors who had little birds' nests in there, he said, your work's so neat. Thanks for doing a good job. And that's the engineers were there at the time of hearing this, and it's so nice when they get to hear it. I mean, we say thanks to them, but when they hear it from the client often may say it to us, but doesn't always say it to the engineers. And so when he said thanks for your hard work, appreciate that. It was nice for them to get the recognition as well. I think that we may be sitting here talking about the effort we put into designing it, but the guys who deliver this system have to work, so hard. We've got very high expectations, myself and Chris, and I know we're hard on them and we push them, but I think that you have to try and get good results. And this project particularly, two of our guys, one of them spent, I think, the best part of 8 months over the course of 2 years out there. And another one of them spent about 4.5, 5 months out there as well. Just going through the system. We had other engineers pop in and out, but because of the approach of the local trades, that we'd have a 2-hour lunch break and we'd get there at 10 o'clock and we'd leave at 3 o'clock, and it actually made sense for our guys to be there, one guy to be there more often than having multiple guys just try and rush areas, because we could hold other trades to account. And the boots on the ground there definitely were the guys who helped make this project the success it was. And the client as well. I mean, he bought into everything we wanted to do, everything we wanted to show him. The idea, like in this photo, of building a frame around the TV, and integrating the soundbar on the bottom, because the ceiling is actually plastered concrete. There's no space to put speakers in there, so we had to integrate the soundbar underneath the TV. He was receptive to all these ideas. He didn't have a problem with a lot of the ideas, and you can see the photo of the speaker in the balustrade as well. Same sort of thing. He said, "We think it's going to work, then let's do it." And I mean, the ideas, the proof is in the pudding. It works. It sounds great out there. There's 4 speakers on this stunning terrace with a 270-degree view of the Mediterranean. I don't think there's many better places in the world than that.
Certainly not, no. So you talked about the other trades being part of the challenge. What else caused you issues?
Well, I mean, it's a difficult one. What else causes issues?
I mean, come on a project that long, there must have been some.
Well, yeah, I mean, the length of it, that's what the project started in. I think the very first time I went to site was in November 2015. It definitely was, because I was looking at the photos the other day, 2015. So I was down there. I didn't go to site the very first visit because we were just with the architects. So I was down there a month before. So it took nearly 3 and a bit years to get the project finished. It was long, and by the end of that, you sort of start to get a little bit, your vision becomes a little bit impaired on projects. So it's difficult to work there with the trades. The client, his expectations were high, and he kept on sort of pushing for further and further, innovation, which we delivered on. He's rolled the system out in another house already. But I think that that was a difficult conversation to have with him, that, yeah, sure, we'll keep making changes and we'll keep programming, but we've gone beyond the scope. You're just paying per day now. You're just paying the day rate. But at the same time, he wasn't the kind of client who was particularly sweating, a few £100 here, there, wherever. About halfway through the project, he sort of said to me, he goes, "If you have to make a decision that's going to cost me less than £1,000 to make the decision, because I do not care." So we were making decisions for him, informing other trades and approving variations for him, because it wasn't worth his time to sit down and have to have a half-an-hour conversation over adding a different relay system to control some manifolds in the house, or whatever it was that the changes that we had to make on site dynamically, and throughout the process. So that was good, and I get that sort of, that we didn't sort of take the piss in any of those situations. I built the rapport. I think we're just waiting for his next super yacht. That's what we're hoping for.
Excellent. And also with a project like that, when it is such a long time scale, I bet he probably wanted to move in earlier than you were ready for him to move in, weren't you?
Yeah, moved in 12 months before the basement was finished. The basement, which included the cinema, the spa, the sauna, the fitness area, everything, and the whole garage. Nothing was finished, and the racks are in the garage. So basically, it was still a building site. So we had to, once the project got once they'd finished, drilling holes in walls next to our expensive equipment, we had to decommission the entire system, open the entire system up, clean every component individually, and then rebuild the whole system again. And fortunately, everything that Crestron make and a lot of our other professional manufacturers is very serviceable. Some of it's not very serviceable, and there's obviously frustrations around that, but we did everything we could to make the system be sort of usable for him for the first, I think it was 11 months or whatever it was that he was in the house, and then when it was finished, we just did a full refresh, and sort of even partway through we upgraded the Apple TVs. Crestron released new remote controls, went through the sales process again, sold some new remote controls. There was I think some other bits and pieces we upgraded as well with there's a new video distribution, a new transmitter that came in that we put in. So there was, we did upgrades halfway through the project as well, which was interesting.
I bet. What impressed you most about what PI have done, Phil?
I really liked, I know it sounds, everybody kind of comes back to the single room in the house, but I really liked the cinema. It was quite classic looking, and I remember that was one of the big areas. We were involved in getting obviously the signals to that particular space, and then obviously things like speakers, amplification and stuff like that is outside of our general product ecosystem. But it was just nice the way that it was thought about, and this whole project from start to finish was, you could see that the client had an idea of what he wanted to do. Stunning location, as Mike said about the terrace, but just that little kind of den all to himself downstairs in the basement, but a proper full-blown cinema. Didn't look like it would pack the punch, but it looked like something out of the 1950s, 1960s.
That's what he wanted it to look like. So
but it was
that was the, I remember that time. He left the room was just plastered boards, and he went on holidays, I think for 6 weeks somewhere, luxury. Like we all do. I'm going tomorrow for 8 weeks. No, so he went away, and in that time they put all of the local contractor put all of the plaster columns on. We put all of the acoustics in, put all the speakers in, got all the trims done. And I sent him a photo when it was done at that stage, and there was no paint, no gold leaf or anything. And he said, "Oh, it's starting to look great." And then we sent him the photo once they'd done all the fabric, all the gold leaf, all the painting, that there was no, I don't think there was any carpet and no seats down. So then we got all the seats came in, the carpet went down, seats came in, and I didn't send him any more photos, but I said, "I'll meet you here next time you're back." And so he came back from holidays, or came back to the property, and I met him at the house, and I said, "Well, the room will be ready in about 15 minutes. So if you want to come down," we got a movie queued up, got the room, all the lights were still on, and then it came down, and he watched the first 15 minutes of one of the Star Wars flicks, and the smile on his face was amazing. He was sitting there, he was filming it, and he was calling his mates, "Come down and check out my cinema, it's awesome." It was that's the sort of, they're the moments when you're doing a job like that's what you live for in this industry, is the smiles on people's faces when they get blown away by the things we do every day. But that's the reward for us, definitely.
Very good. And Phil in the chat just asked, has he referred you to any of his near neighbours?
Has he referred us to any of his neighbours? Yeah, he's given us two of his contacts. But I'm not going to tell Phil that, because he'll try and poach him.
Excellent. I mean, how would you sum up the experience of working? Obviously, winning a CEDIA Global Award is a big deal, right? So you must be quite pleased of what you did.
Yeah, I think Yeah, I mean, for us, it was an awesome project. We put a lot of effort into it, and we won 3 CEDIA awards for the project, and 2 other, one other industry award and 1 design award for it. And that's when you get a recognition for these awards for projects that you do and that you put a lot of effort into, and you get a lot of blood, sweat and tears over a number of years and a few more grey hairs, then it's just I don't know, you can't help but be thrilled by that. So the way that the whole thing came together for us was fantastic. Having a happy client, he's now been there for 2 years. We've done one full maintenance visit where, again, we changed some of his IPTVs to newer versions, did a few firmware updates, found something that the gardener had ripped out and just thrown back in the bushes, and a few other bits and pieces like that. You know, we're happy that the project does that well. I mean, we constantly get calls every quarter. We get a call from the plumber saying, oh, he needs to try and do something. He needs to try and do this, that, and we can sort it all out remotely. But the fact that we only have to go once a year to support this project, and that's very much a sort of, we only go there because we want to show our face, check things, and find things that the gardeners have ripped out. That we need to go. The project is phenomenal. We've got an on-site laptop that we've got built into the system. It's constantly there giving us updates. We monitor his internet connection for speed, monitor the network for security and intrusions, monitor the conditions of everything. One whole core of our program is dedicated to giving us feedback on the property, which our support and programming team monitor. And, you know, whether it's telling us that the lights have come on in the garden at the wrong time or something like that, or that there's been a perimeter security fault or a warning, it gives us the feedback and the knowledge of what's going on in the project and what we're doing. So yeah, it's an immense project, and I'm really glad it's over, but it's also very satisfying to have delivered it to the standard that we did. You know, we like to do the right thing by our clients, and I feel like we did.
Sure. Remember, anyone listening, if you want to drop a question in the chat bar, you can, and we'll try and get them answered. Would there be anything you do differently, Michael?
Yeah, so it's a very, you know, pertinent question. Would we? Yeah, we would. We would do now that project is. If we did that project again now, we would change the network to. That was a series of individual switches. We'd make that a stacked network. We'd probably put NVX in there instead. The downside is we would lose the touchscreen interface on certain TVs. I'm pretty sure we could find a way around that. That would be probably the biggest change we'd make. I wouldn't change any of the hardware for anything. The selection from the projector and the cinema hardware that we toured the customer around ISE. He chose all that stuff himself, and we use that a lot. It's fantastic stuff. The way that the control works, we'd probably, if we were going to go back, we'd probably give him the HTML5. We'd probably spend a bit more time developing that. We'd upgrade him to that. We might, yeah. I mean, we did use, for the people who want to get really nerdy, we did use CP3s in the project. We probably would upgrade them to CP4s now, or AV3s or AV4s when they get announced, just to get the extra processing potential out of the system. Otherwise, there's not really much that we'd change. We probably would take a lot more control early on from the other trades. We sort of tried to be very friendly and work with them for the first about year, and then after that we just sort of said this is ridiculous. So we would have dictated riser places, you know, the cable routes, the conduit, the design for the conduits. They kind of ran them to all really weird, inaccessible locations. We would have changed the way that worked and done a lot more coordinating on the services infrastructure than we did do at the outset. And I would have probably, knowing the client like I do now, back then, I probably would have tried to sort of, I would have been a bit more firm on some of the process of him getting everything put in 12 months before he moved in, so that we probably would have done a much smaller installation to start with, and rather than trying to get everything up and running and then realizing that it was going to be another 12 months on. And I would have recommended a different builder.
Small things really then.
Yes, exactly.
What would you say, Phil, about the project? Just generally summing it up, anything that you think was particularly innovative from a Crestron perspective?
I like the way that obviously the on-screen UI is that's a really nice feature, and it's not often used by many. Some use it quite a bit, and others don't necessarily present it forwards. I always quite like it because, you know, especially things like master bedroom TVs, you're not then doubling up. You might have a touchscreen somewhere on the first floor, or even in the room, but it's quite nice to have something that you can actually navigate on screen without having to have a button on a remote control. And even with our configurable kind of buttons, you only get, I think in that case they were HR 150, so you've only got a selection of buttons at the top, 8 in fact, that you can assign functions to before you start getting into multi-taps and other things like that. So the on-screen UI, really clever. And as Mike said, I think the changes obviously that he would have made now would have come away from a fixed matrix into something a little bit more flexible like MVX. Yeah. Again, that product group, DM's grown in its lifetime. 2008 that was released, and it's still going and it's still being updated. Now that's 4K obviously, and MVX is going down the same route with continuous updates that come out. So it's been quite nice because as Mike goes down and they do yearly reviews to the system, there's often a lot of new features that arrive from us that are FOC in the form of firmwares. Obviously, it's up to the integration market to present those to their clients if that's what they want to do, or it's just keep the system as exactly as it was because there's nothing that's changed. Obviously, if you've got source equipment that's changed, they might need a firmware update. And again, they're all resources that people can get hold of.
Yeah, I mean, for exactly what Phil just said about talking about the upgrades and all that sort of stuff, more in terms of the firmware in the back end. The project we've done next, this will also answer a question. I mean, the question and answer, yes, there is another project. We've just finished it, and that's gone in for the CEDIA Awards this year. So we may be doing this again soon, hopefully. That project, the way that we wrote our program and some of the structure of the program, our programmers found that they could do things better. So retrospectively, as part of the service contract and support contract we've got for the client, we've gone back, we've updated the code, but we haven't implemented it yet because we want to be on site. Unfortunately, with coronavirus, we can't be doing that at the moment, but we will do an update for him to give him, and it probably won't change the user interface to him, but it will change the efficiency, and it changes the processing load on the Crestron processors and lowers that. So they're just sort of small features and benefits and improvements that we make them. And if there's projects like this, which are sort of, you know, our hallmark projects, we do go back and revisit them and you know, and offer the client upgrades and support. And Phil, he does have some of the TSR 3, he's got a 302 and a 310 there. Because again, it was one of the remotes he released, and it was a, you know, a better version. It had better functionality, and he wanted to do upgrades. So these are sort of things he does, you know, small upgrades here, there, and everywhere where he sees fit.
And I think you mentioned to me, Michael, when you were thinking about the control system. I mean, did you look anywhere but Crestron?
I mean, we've got Crestron programmers on staff, so it's always our go-to. For a project like that, when it was one floor of what could have been a one-bedroom apartment, when I got the first floor plans through, it could have theoretically gone to another control system. But as soon as we started entertaining a house that is a house that has got, you know, multiple facets and areas and cinema and then outdoor, we would never have considered anything else. Our expertise lies in using Crestron. The support, the relationship we have with Crestron is fantastic. As Phil said, him and Greg are always contactable, and they've got fantastic knowledge of the products that they sell. So the relationship we have with them, and that we know that they can, that if the client wants a referral, or, you know, have you heard of Perfect Integration before, that the Crestron are happy to say they have. They're happy to work with us. They recommend us to people because they know we do good quality work, and we're happy to recommend their products because we know they're good quality products and that they stand the test of time and they have all the features. And if you need to be able to do something that isn't just, you know, two apples touching each other. It can do all of that sort of stuff.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for your time. It was fantastic insights. I think being able to look at something that's a simply stunning looking villa, but to actually look at all the technical side of what's gone into it and brings it alive for the client, I think that's a real privilege. So thanks for giving up your time.
There's one other comment in there from Hassan about how important is the customizable interface. We're very excited about the idea of using Crestron Home. We think that's going to fill a part of the market for us. In a property like this, we would only probably ever approach it with a full fat Crestron, like the whole Crestron system, because we'd like to be able to offer our clients customizability. And we wouldn't probably sit there and say, "Oh, we can't do that because it's not part of the mold." We don't believe. I mean, there is no is a word in our vocabulary, definitely, but we don't believe in telling the client no, they can't have that feature because it's not an inherent function in another user interface. So I think that it's important to have it. I think that offering the client the more recent user interfaces have hot buttons on the front as well for things that they want to use every day, like good morning, good night, all that sort of stuff. And that sort of having that functionality, being able to just tailor a user interface in a matter of 10-15 minutes is brilliant. My programmers would kill me if I told them that that's all it takes, but yeah, that's it. It is very useful.
You'll be delighted to know that Hassan agrees with you.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. Hope you all enjoyed it. Remember, the Integrated Home podcast is available free on podcast platforms everywhere. You can find us on Twitter at IntHomePod, on Facebook and Instagram at Integrated HomePod, and on LinkedIn at the Integrated Home Podcast. This webinar, supported by Crestron and TIG, thank you very much, guys, is a Wildwood production. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.